Hi, everybody. My name is Jess Roveda. I'm an artist based out of Toronto. I was also the guest on episode 3 of Your Worst Song. I'm a good friend of Alex, friend of the pod, and you're probably wondering, why am I hearing her voice today and not Alex's in the intro? And that's because I'm hosting this episode today. This is episode 50, and for a special occasion such as this, we are reversing the roles where Alex is going to be the guest who is interviewed. And this came to be after I had sent Alex a message back when the podcast first started, saying, it would be really cool if an episode like this were to happen at some point. And he agreed. He said it was probably already in his plans, if I'm not misremembering that. And yeah, fast forward to very recently, he asked me if I wanted to be the host of this episode, and I was obviously over the moon when he asked me to do that, so here I am now. We had a really great conversation. We talked about, what he's been up to this year and just kind of his backstory as how he got his start as a musician and all of that leading up to now. We had some more serious conversations about topics like sobriety and mental health, but we also talked about a lot more lighthearted things like building community and just, of course, general music process. So all in all, it was a great conversation, great time getting to know a friend a bit better and also providing you guys a chance to get to know the host a bit better and a bit more of his background. So I'm super honored and thankful that Alex asked me to host this episode. So just for today, I'm your host, Jess Roveda, and this is Your Worst Song with Alex Southey. Introduce to you today the one and only Alex Southey.
Hey, how's it going?
I'm great. How are you doing, Alex?
Good. I'm glad that you could do this.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. And I want to start that off by saying thanks for being here, but it's your show, so of course you were going to be here.
Yeah, it's still good I showed up. I'm a flaky
Yeah,
person.
yeah, exactly. So, God, that would be funny if it was a ghost situation, but that's
Yeah,
not the case.
exactly.
But anyway, yeah, so I'm really excited to talk to you today about, your side of the story because this is what, episode 50 now?
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah,
wow. Yeah.
so
Jeez.
50 awesome episodes. And yeah, it's been a hell of a year, probably, or 2024 was anyway. You launched this podcast, you did a whole bunch of stuff. Let's hear maybe a little bit of a synopsis on that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, certainly was a year. I launched the podcast, like you said. This podcast started in late June, pretty much on a whim. Um, and additionally put out music and stuff like that. And yeah, it's been kind of, I guess that's how I could condense it. It's been those two fronts of things.
Yeah, totally. So, and you're moving back to Toronto soon, so
Yeah,
that's
that's ex
exciting.
that's exciting. Yeah, for people who don't know, or I don't know, I think I said it once in a while on the podcast probably, but when I started it, I was living in Liberty Village, like right on the border of Parkdale, and then eventually I moved to just south of Dufferin Grove Park, and then for a while I was with my parents in like closer to Markham, Ontario, and then Stouffville, Ontario, and so finally I'll be February 1st moving back to downtown Toronto in an area I've really never visited much, so that's sort of going to be interesting. The Wallace Emerson Junction area,
Okay,
which I
nice.
think is distinctly different from the Junction. So that'll
Y
be interesting.
Yeah, I think you're correct.
Yeah.
I don't know enough about it to explain it, but I'm pretty sure you're correct. But yeah, no, you pretty much did the world tour of moving in 2024. So
Yes, exactly. That's what it
yeah.
felt like.
And I was thinking too, it's kind of a funny full circle moment when you had me on. I was, I think, like maybe a week or two moving from Toronto. So now I'm the
Yeah.
one saying, "Oh, now you're moving back." So anyway, yeah, really stoked that you're going to be back here in Toronto and just to, have you part of the community again. Not that you ever weren't a part, but also seeing more shows and
No,
all the
but when
things
I
that.
was a part of the community, you had not moved yet. So it's a fun, or I think, right?
Um,
Maybe
yeah.
just maybe just initially.
Yeah, I think like when we initially met, I was maybe 5 months out from moving home. And
Yeah.
anyway, the
Yeah,
point is we will
exactly.
be reunited once
That's what I
again.
mean. Yes,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, so awesome. Okay, yeah, and then you have your LP that's coming out when?
Yeah, I know. I thank you for bringing it up. I It was supposed to come out February, but now I'm just, priorities change and your opinion about your work changes and the reality is I'm always sort of fighting between do I want to spend a ton of money, sometimes money I don't have, on making this sound as good as possible and be an attractive package to put out? Or do I just care about getting the songs down and putting them out and the production comes second? And the reality is, if I could, I would just do puts my songs out as I want, I guess, and whatever. But yeah, the reality is, and I've lived through enough to learn this, people do care about the production. Like it does matter. Uh, Even in a folk adjacent genres that I play in, it people do care. Like they're more forgiving of worse or lo-fi production, but it's clear that the the work that I've done and put out, the best produced stuff is the most listened to.
Yeah, and that definitely obviously makes sense for a lot of reasons. But
Yeah.
even so, like when you think, kind of like you said, people do tend to be forgiving about maybe some of the more lo-fi stuff. It really is, you never truly know, right? Because some people are like, oh, I love it when this particular artist, doesn't have something totally polished. Or, on the other hand, they'll say, I like this artist, but, man, this album sounds like shit.
Yeah,
Or
exactly.
sometimes, and this is an anecdote I may have brought up with you, if not others, but saying there's an album that sounds like shit objectively, but I kind of love it anyway. So you never know what you're gonna get. But either way, no, I get what you're saying about just, wanting to committing to having things sound a certain way, but also the financial struggles that come with that, or even just stylistic ones too, where you
Yeah.
can say, this is good, but maybe it's not entirely what I want. So.
It's easy to get mired in that, I think, even just the goalposts keep changing, your tastes keep changing in very minor ways, and so you could spend forever tweaking probably the production or mixing or whatever on your album. It's just you got to just put stuff out sometimes.
And that's something I wanted to ask you too, because you've put out what I want to say at least one either EP or LP a year in the last 5 or 6 years. Is that accurate?
Yeah, in the last like 4 or 5 years, yes. Or maybe
Yeah.
5 or 6. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, because I
Yeah.
guess my follow-up to that was going to be like, if there's anything that you found, you know what, I really like how I sound best when I've done it this way, or because you've also done so many different things. So I'm kind of curious to hear where you're
Yeah.
at now with that.
Yeah, it's funny. That's definitely changed. I go back and listen to some stuff once in a while and I'm like, wow, this is a different person with different opinions when they made this. Uh, Opinions about anything, but like I guess to answer your question, the yeah, there are three sort of distinct things that I think that I've done, which are two of them are easily see, they're obvious. One is I've done the folk thing, and one is I've done the harder, like full band rock thing. Um, but I've also done this like closer to what I would say is like Broken Bells, like mixture of folk rock, but the fundamental rhythm section is more beats and stuff like
Okay.
that.
hmm
That was present on an EP I made called My Nights on the Island, and I made it just all myself and in the fall, I think the first fall of COVID. So it had happened in March, and then this was that fall that came later. Um, anyway, I just point out those three types, and I guess to answer your question of which one am I more into at the moment, probably the last one. It's sort of we both know Gab Lavoie. Yeah,
Legend.
legend. I haven't used his sound recently, so I've got to bring that back. I think it was
You gotta.
actually I've been trying to think of what that. I'll get back to what I was saying, but I've been trying to think of what that instrument is. What is the name of the uh I don't even
Oh,
know
is it
what I
just
would
like the chimes?
chimes, but chimes in like a row. Are they truly just called chimes?
I think so. And yeah, like I think it's fair to say that yeah, you're just kind of going down the line with
Yeah,
them
exactly.
with
Yeah.
and I don't know if any chimes experts want to chime in, then please send some
Yeah.
listener mail. But yeah.
Chimites. I don't know. What is the
Chime
chime
lights.
player? Chimians.
The chime
Um,
squad. I don't know. We could
the
come up with
chimes.
names all day here.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, getting back to what I was saying, I guess. Oh yeah, I'm working with Gab now on stuff, and I will bring it back to the album that I'm working on, Jesus Christ. But right now I'm working with Gab on something that's closer to the latter of what I said, which is like beats as well as organic acoustic instruments and stuff. Um, the album itself, yeah, I am basically in pause mode as I make enough money to add the production quality that I want to the song. So it was meant to come out in February. Now it probably will come out in, I don't know, April or something.
Yeah, I totally get that. I'm in a similar spot, not in the sense where I have a closer to complete product, but just, getting things going and thinking about the budget as
Hmm.
most of us do in the end. So I
Yes.
totally get that. But at least, you had just put out Pitch. That was
Hmm.
super recently, right?
It was in October. It was in
Okay.
October, yes. And then I have one coming out in like, 20 days. Or I guess when this is out, it'll probably be right around that time. Actually, episode 50, if I think about it. So,
Perfect. And
uh,
what song will that be?
that's called Wonder Hard, which was just like it's not a real word. It's just how there's like wanderlust is a word,
Yeah.
this isn't wander, this is wonder, think, ponder on. But it's the same sort of idea of just shoving two things together and then making it a word. Um, and it also, yeah, and that song is very I don't know. People won't be surprised. It's very like acoustic. It's not finger picked, but it's picked. It's very sort of early Elliott Smith kind of stuff, is what I would say.
Nice. Yeah, I'm stoked to hear it. And, if it's out by the time that this comes out, if you're listening, make sure to listen to that song after this. And if
Yes,
not, be on the lookout for it.
exactly, exactly right. It'll have a music video that I made as well, around where I had been living in between Markham and Stouffville.
That's really exciting. And the music video, did you do that yourself or did you get someone to help you out with that? Or
Yeah, I just did it myself. I mean, music videos I feel the exact same about them as I just described about production and putting songs out. It's the same thing. Like at the end of the day, it's good to just sometimes just put something out, like at the bottom line. But if you can try and make it look good or whatever, get people behind it, then it does help its status, just like, or it helps its reputation going out into the world, just like albums do if you get actual names to produce or to play on it or whatever. Um, and just like the songs, I had not brought them to anybody to be nice production stuff. It was just me, and I was trying to do justice to them. And the video is the same way. I didn't bring it to anybody. I just did it myself, walking around and then editing it and adding effects and stuff.
Mhm. Yeah, I totally get the need or the need and the want to put like a visual to your music sometimes, just to maybe give it more context or just say, here's how you hear the song, here's how I see the song in my head, and I want to bring that to life. So I think a lot of people will say, oh, who watches music videos anymore? It's a dying art, but it's like that shouldn't be the attitude towards it. Like it's still your art at the end of the day, right? So I think, people should still do it if they want to. So all I have to say, it's really nice that, you are someone who is like, yeah, I'm gonna put a music video or a visual for my music.
Yeah, it's probably better to just call it a visual. I don't know how quite. There's no thriller dancing in this music video coming out or anything.
Not this
Um,
time.
Not this time. Yeah, that's true. I'm hinting at what will come later. My late career left turn. Uh, yeah, you're right about the video, and also I also just think it's not necessary and arguably is a dying art form. But I agree with you. It shouldn't be that way, and the people who are receiving your album, whether it's critics or just people giving general coverage or actual fans or listeners, they do like it. They do like having that. So it is worth doing, even if you are correct that it is not actually the big deal it used to be when we were kids.
Absolutely. Like you don't have to put out a video either, but I think it's one of those things where people I think do feel a bit discouraged, like, oh, I want to do a video, but I don't know if I should. It's like just if you want to, just do it. It's your
Yeah.
art, you know, the art police isn't gonna come for you.
That's a good line. You should hold on to that.
I'll trademark it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
But yeah, okay, so just yeah, everything leading up to that. So I want to go a little bit backwards. You put out Entertainers Bring May Flowers collection this past year. A lot of different sounds and things going on in that. I'm just really curious, like if you want to talk a bit more about the process that went into all of that.
Yeah. Yeah, that was like the rehearsal for what I'm going through right now with dealing with what how much production I want to add to it. That I came down on the side of there are a few things about that project that were sort of funny to me, but one of them was, yeah, it came down on the side. I came down on the side of, for the most part, I'm just gonna put out songs that I I'm comfortable with the fact that they range in production style. I'm just going to put that. That's why it's called a collection. You know what I mean? It's less manicured than if somebody puts out a concept album or something like that. But the other thing, the stuff that I found funny, like I was kind of trying to play the system, and I'm comfortable saying it now because I'm onto another I'm onto another cycle, I guess. But what I was trying to do is extend the life of the song. So what I did was I put out there are like 10 tracks on that collection if I'm not mistaken or maybe 8. But let's say it's around that. Whatever number it is, I put out let's say it's 8. I put out 7 singles in the preceding 12 months. And then I just decided okay, even though I put out pretty much every song as a single, I'm going to make it an album and add one song that I had never put out. And the reason that's gaming the system is because some radio stations will only accept submissions of singles, and then other radio stations will only accept EPs or albums. So by putting it out essentially twice, I'm extending the lives and extending the coverage that it could potentially get. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, totally. And I mean, like,
Okay.
it feels like I'd say probably most artists do things like that too. Maybe not necessarily in the same process that you're describing, but even just to say, like, I mean, even yeah, the typical okay, a few singles come out, then an album,
Yes, that is
where
typical. That is
yeah,
typical.
but the
Yeah.
way that you've gone about it is, I get where you're going with that. So I
Yeah,
think it's yeah, you gotta play the game sometimes.
you got to play the game sometimes. And also, yeah, there were some pretty big differences between, like you were saying, varied sounds, varied production quality. Some of it is like really lo-fi, almost demo style, and some of it is some of it was recorded in a nice studio in Toronto with a full band, and it kind of runs the gamut of that. And I was okay with it because I've the context that I'd provided around it was collection. So collection can be as loose as possible. That's I'm obsessed with context. Everything is just based on context.
I feel that entirely, where it's almost it's just like you know what you're doing, you know what your intentions are, but the
Yeah.
unfortunate reality of sometimes having to hold the hand of the audience.
Yes, subtext is tough to actually put into your work because audiences don't get subtext unless they're obsessed with you the way pop culture is with Bob Dylan. He's in the news again, whatever, right? People are willing to teach classes about the lines and the production that he decided on, whereas you and I, we know that it's just the reality of being smaller musicians. We'll get more passing interest, and then some fans, right? Nobody's
Absolutely.
buying our booklets, and then probably not.
Not yet.
Not yet. That's a better attitude.
I feel like this is like the second or third time I've said not yet, so that's probably going to be the theme, recurring
Yeah,
theme.
that can be the theme. No, I like that. Not yet.
Yeah. Um, yeah, okay. Yeah, no, I totally understand that approach and yeah, just obviously a lot to learn from that moving forward for what you're doing, like in the best ways possible.
Yes, no, absolutely. It's
Um,
all been learning stuff.
yeah, and so what I want to do is go kind of even more backwards. I think just,
Please do.
for
Yeah.
my sake and for the sake of the audience, I want to know, what's the Alex Southey story, how you got your start and your influences and, just how has your career as a musician just evolved since you really got into it?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, sure. Well, I'm smiling so much because I it starts out in a way where it's just like I should. At one point, I emailed my music teacher from elementary school, and he was like shocked this is what I was doing. So
Oh, wow.
let that be the preface. Um, yeah, I always liked music, whatever, just as we all do though. Um, and then around 12, I was interested enough that I asked for a guitar from my parents, but it was much easier to just be sort of gifted slash given a used guitar from my friend's older brother. So that's what I ended up getting. And my parents, very in a well-meaning way, but didn't end up what I wanted to be. They put me into classical guitar study, which is like he likes guitar, put him in classical, whatever. Even though few of us, I think, when we get into this kind of music, prefer classical. We like pop stuff. Kids would probably rather go for an hour and learn this these days, like a Shawn Mendes song or something on guitar and walk away. And they're like, hey, at least I know how to play that. So, all that to say, my interest in guitar waned until a few years later, maybe when I was 13 or yeah, around 13, it started to kick in again. So let's say that stuff before was like when I was 11. Um, I started listening to Sam Roberts, one of, a bunch of, I started listening to bands that I paid attention to instead of just whatever was on the radio or top 40 or my parents. And Sam Roberts was one of them. If people who don't know, he's a CanCon, 2000s to whatever.
Yeah, a
A
lot of bops.
a lot of bops, but popular in Canada. And I learned one of his songs, which was called, oh yeah, the Canadian Dream, and the chorus of that is him spelling the word socialism, which I didn't really pick up on when I was a kid. I was just paying attention to the music, and the music I didn't. I was so fresh. Uh, I thought it was a riff that plays multiple times, like bum 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 bum. But now, as an adult, I know it was delay. They probably just hit that note one time and then it delayed. So anyway, that's how much I was fumbling around on guitar. But I was interested enough, and I and then you sort of hit high school kind of thing, and I was not the type to go to parties at all, or I wasn't popular and I wasn't unpopular. I was like in that safe wide middle, and I just spent a lot of time at home, on in the early days of YouTube and stuff, watching unofficial band documentaries and being obsessed with that kind of pop culture and stuff, all while playing 70s leaning guitar. There was a time when I was much better at guitar than I am now. I'm better at songwriting now, but there was a time when I was playing like Jimmy Page style stuff and okay at it. But I was like 16 and 17 and literally just spent all the time in my room or with my friends or small group of friends. So from that you'd expect me to get into music, but I don't because I'm too like shy and too it seems like putting yourself out there to do anything artistic, and because it means those are your opinions, like frozen and expressed. And so I go to university, I study history and creative writing and stuff like that. I eventually kind of go, okay, well, it's less nerve-wracking for me to get into film or TV than it is for me and screenwriting than it is, God forbid, to perform in front of people or sing for fuck's sake.
I get that completely.
Yeah. So, although I was doing all of that very privately, I was recording tiny little things myself, but I was like, never will I show this to people. But yeah, so I get into screenwriting and stuff like that after going to film school, which came after UBC, all in Vancouver. Eventually, that just everybody I'd gone to university with and the people that I'd gone to film school with dispersed. UBC was filled with international students, so many of them moved or they moved from other parts of Canada, so they had moved back. I was just alone there, and Vancouver is gorgeous, but I didn't get along with its some like it seems like sometimes the vibe of the people there is somewhat closed off. Um, unless you're into hiking or something, and I just wasn't as beautiful as it is. So eventually I moved back to Toronto. I was like 25 and searching for a job, couldn't find a job. And I just had this like breakdown basically where I called my parents and was like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. What is this? Like I was deeply depressed. I started going to therapy, started taking medication. And also what came out of that was me going like, okay, now that this bottom mental health wise has happened, how scary really is putting out fucking music? Like, who cares? Playing. So that actually freed me of my fears. Um, and I began playing live. The first place that I played was the very first place I think I played was the fucking hell. Either the Cavern, which was a half
Yeah, I
perform.
remember the
You
cavern.
do, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Sorry, I feel like this is really long-winded.
that's all good.
Okay, but
But
yeah, I
we're
play.
here to talk. We're here to yap.
We're here to yeah, yeah, exactly. We're here to yap. Uh, it was at the hostel, which was a hostel and also a performance thing, so that was fun. But I've talked a bit about that. Another place that I started early was in Parkdale, the TO Lounge. They had a maybe it was Wednesdays at the time, an open mic, friendly people, whatever. And I went and played some songs, and it kind of just started from there. But I tried to treat it like I kind of I like stand-up comedy a lot, and I know that something stand-up comedians do is when they perform, they'll record their set so they can listen back and see how they can improve and da da da. So that's started what I started doing at open mics, and it helped me improve a decent amount. And bit by bit, I was just willing to put myself out there more publicly. Like you can't imagine the fear I had uh at the idea of me having an Instagram devoted to my music with my face on it. Like I refused to do it. I considered trying to do like a fucking who's that guy? The graffiti artist who's never revealed
Oh,
himself.
Banksy.
Banksy, yeah,
Yeah.
Banksy, or doing the dance duo that's famous for wearing the helmets. What's that?
Daft Punk.
Yes, exactly.
I love
So
this game of
doing
charades.
yeah, I've got two more locked and loaded if we weren't sure about those. But Gorillas was the other one I was going to bring up.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But something in that way where I didn't need to put myself physically out there. Like anyway, I eventually got over that, I guess, just by fucking exposure therapy and forcing myself to do it. But my anxiety about it still, it made me cancel like probably half the gigs that I was getting or half the gigs that I was planning or whatever. And um, eventually, I just get this opportunity to take over an open mic in Dundas Square, which is at the Imperial Pub, and I ended up doing that for like 4 or 5 years, um, until very recently, and that helped me more than anything because if you're the head of an open mic, people are looking to you for setting the tone and the kind of vibe it is. And so I knew that I had to be the first one to start playing to make other people feel comfortable enough to come up. And especially, I would play unfinished stuff. So people were like, okay, this is a safe space where if I want to play my finished song that I'm really proud of, great. But if I fuck up, it's not that big a deal. Um, yeah, sorry. Do you want to maybe I don't know. I'm losing
No, that's
myself here
great. And
maybe.
yeah, like you mentioned, obviously, I started going to the open mics when you were leading, and that's very much like the environment that you created to just make people feel comfortable. Like, if they have something finished to present, great. If not, like, this is a safe space to be like, hey, this is my song. I only have, one verse, one chorus, and that's it. You
Yeah.
do it anyway. Like even for myself, when I was still kind of finding my place, so to speak, as a solo artist. Was a couple times I went like that was, I
Yeah,
think,
that
a
was great
really
to see.
good experience. So all that to say, like, just, hearing your story and how, you know, you just had such a fear about going into it and the way that you overcame that. I think that you have a lot to be proud of because, just look at everything that you've accomplished and what is to come. And we're all happy to have you here, as an
Oh,
active musician and who's putting out platforms like this for others. And yeah, all that to say, just really, really stoked that, you got through it, that you're here now, that you're still putting stuff out. And it's really interesting to hear, just your insight about some of the ways that you got over it. Like you said, doing the open mic kind of forced you to be like, okay, well, I'm going to have to be the first guy to play.
Hmm.
Or even how, like you said, with gigs, you'll record them and, watch them back to see what you want to improve. I think that's all super valuable and just really goes to show the commitment that you do have to wanting to, make yourself obviously feel better about what you do, but also say, how can I enhance this experience for everyone else in the room?
Yeah. Well, first of all, that's all really kind. Thank you. That's made me uh feel awkward. Bashful. Positive awkward is bashful, I suppose. Thank you for saying all that. And yeah, talking more about, I guess, me wanting to do things for other people. It like what you're saying. It does come from a good place, mostly, but it also comes from me being like an asshole about where things are in the industry, whatever industry I care about. Um, and oh, oh shit, one second, sorry. I gotta
Sure.
upgrade. I have to upgrade, otherwise we're gonna have to stop the thing.
Oh, oh shit. Okay, I see that.
Yeah, my bad. It's because I stopped using, just for people listening, I stopped using the Marlene Music PR email, and I'm just using my music email and that kind of thing. Um, Jesus Christ. One second. Sorry. We can edit
we
this out.
racing against time here, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, exactly. Um,
Yeah, that's okay. I'll hold my, or rather, I'll let you continue when it's time to continue, but
yeah, sure.
holding on to my thought as well.
I guess what I was basically saying is uh I can be very critical of the status quo, I guess, because I think that it was for a few reasons. One was I felt very uh what's the word for it? Disillusioned, I guess, by by everything that had happened in the music industry by the time I arrived. Like, I think you and I both like music from a lot of the same era, which is in the past. And it seems like up until maybe 2000-ish, there was a lot of money given to nurture artists, not just acquire an artist that had basically, okay, I solved it.
Perfect.
Not just acquire an artist that had already kind of made it to the point that you could almost wonder if they were already on a label and then they're asked to be on a label. It seemed like people would just be plucked if they were decent songwriters in a populated city with a music scene, and somebody saw them and they were like, "Fuck it, 6 album deal because you wrote this one song well." And maybe that never existed, and I'm pining after a romanticized version of it. I'm sure it's somewhere in the middle. Uh, but either way, it disillusioned me. And then once you do get in, so that was the first shock and first, oh God, what the fuck? But then the second thing that makes you want to change it is once you're in it long enough, at least within Toronto, um, you start to actually understand what the limitations are and what the problems are that you might be able to actually change. And so then you become an asshole for good. And uh, that's sort of what I'm also trying to do with this. I'm trying to perform my beliefs essentially. And that means having an open mic that I don't think is filled with people who are just trying to get ahead and cut other people down and be snarky and also be fancy. If you want to be fancy, that's fine. I just mean, I don't, the only reason I didn't love that at open mics was because I was like, it's an open mic. It's supposed to be for beginners. Making it have all of these who wants to be a millionaire lights is kind of making it seem more intense than it is. It doesn't need to be like this. It should be
Yeah.
writing in a notebook.
It feels more like just hanging out with your friends, honestly. Like at least the Imperial one.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So
Which is
good. And
great. Well, I love that, which is why I love it. Yeah.
that's what it should be. Yes, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, I think what all you said there is very important too, where yeah, like you'd mentioned, I definitely do relate with, like you said, the time that you and I came up to, hear all these stories about what the possibilities are,
Hmm.
and then being like, well, it's not entirely like that. And it kind of sucks in a way because we do. the time we live in now, and even like kind of leading up, we have so much access to those horror stories where it's great that we're able to hear or even learn about it the easy way a
Hmm.
lot of the time. But it is definitely, yeah, unfortunately, very easy to get jaded and disillusioned at the same time. So, leading up to what you said as well about wanting to, kind of use that knowledge for good. It's like the saying goes, be the change you want to see in this world. So even if the industry as a whole, has shitty practices here and there and certain necessary evils, what have you, at least whatever you do as, and what you put out there and how you treat other people, interact with other people, you can still build that within your own community and present some positivity amongst other
Absolutely.
musicians. So I
It,
totally get that.
exactly. It can your effects you can still have some positive impact through a ripple effect in your own little community, even if you're not Gandhi, who I think said, "Be the change you want to see in the world." I think I love that phrase. Like that's that and put your money where your mouth is, which is are
Mhm.
sort of two versions of the same thing. Um,
Absolutely.
are my words to live by, frankly. That's why I am sometimes annoyingly outspoken, but it is for the most part to improve things. Like that's why I wrote I wrote that article of how to collect your money, which is probably floating around if you're an artist and have ever been played on the radio or anything like that. It's such a labyrinthian process that I think is that way partially on purpose. Uh, I wanted to demystify it, and that's all part of being unhappy with the way things are and wanting to lift myself up, which is great, but then learn how I lifted myself up and bring other people along.
Yeah, it really is just at the end of the day, musicians helping other musicians. And if,
Yeah.
if the industry's not going to do it for us, then the least we can do is be there for each other.
A rising tide lifts all boats
Yeah,
is
yeah. Look
another
at
thing
look at
I've
all
heard.
these quotes and cliches that we're pulling out today.
Exactly. I know.
Yeah. So with all that in mind, I do want to shift gears to
Hmm.
one of the main topics, so everything that you mentioned, just culmination of experience and years of doing this and that. I want to talk shows, your best show and your worst show. Which one do you want to start with?
Sure. Yeah. Why don't we start with best show? Because I that's what I have an answer for right now.
All right, let's do it. I
Um,
also, sorry, but not to interrupt, but I'm kind of surprised. Like, this is your show and you don't have a worst show in your
I
mind
know, I
yet?
know. I was thinking about that today. I was like, Jesus, how have I sort of avoided thinking about this? Um, my best show, I think, was when I played North by Northeast for the first time with Gab and Christina and uh, Craig, who played synth, bass, and drums, respectively, at a time when I had a full band. And yeah, it was first time playing North by Northeast, and we played the back of the Cameron House. And even though we were on first, it was like already a packed house, and the vibe was just really good. I remember I wore a bunch of Jay's stuff, and I had a Jay's bucket hat, and I threw that out into the crowd. It was fun. It's just not something I typically it's not something I'm not so typically loose that I'll throw stuff out into the crowd or be as bantery as I was. Not to mention, I think everybody in the band sounded really good, and it was like when we were the tightest as a band, probably. So that was just it made me feel good. I don't know. That's the
Nice.
barometer, right?
Yeah, and I like what you mentioned too about how, you threw stuff into the crowd, but you're not usually the type of person to do that. But it really is just like those in the moment things that
Yeah.
you're just feeling it and it makes it feel so much more special where you're like, I'm at a 100 right now. Let's do
Yes.
something that I don't usually do. So I'm happy to hear that. And even yeah, that show too. Insert Gab noise here. I'm pretty sure Gab's mentioned at least a number of times that he really enjoyed that show as
Oh,
well. So
really? Oh,
yeah.
wow. Good, good.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
that's cool. That's nice to hear.
yeah. So with
Yeah,
that
no.
said, do you have a bad show in mind or
Yeah, well, yeah, there's like a short answer and a long answer, I'm realizing. The short answer is, yeah, in I had a show in Hamilton at the Casbah. So at the Casbah there's like a back area which is more of where, bands will play and it looks more like kind of a venue, and then there's the front section where you're sort of more like a an act playing for people drinking or hanging out at the bar and getting something to eat or whatever. It's like two sections of it
Is
for
it fair
people.
to call it the Hamilton Cameron House in that respect?
I guess it is. Yeah, I guess it is quite a bit like that. Yeah, pretty similar. And so I went and played there, and I had the set that was like the set time was like 5 to 6 p.m., which, not a lot of people are going to come check it out. Maybe it was like 7 to 8 or something, slightly better, but still not God knows 9 is like when people begin showing up to things.
Right.
Um, so nobody came. Zero people came. Zero, zero. And not I was also it was the kind of thing where I was promised a whatever it's honorarium, I guess. Uh did not get it.
Hmm.
Did not get it. It was never resolved with them. But I mean, I just felt like I already felt shitty because no one came, but also it was sort of understandable because of the time. But also I was hoping I would get some of the money because I still did play for my entire time. And then I was like ignored basically after that. So that was the worst.
Yeah.
I've had worse stuff happen where like, you know, you feel worse inside, but the show is fine. That was probably my worst show.
Right. Yeah. So in addition to zero people just not even getting paid that honorarium, like that's it. It just it really sucks where, it seems more and more lately, maybe not more and more, I'm just kind of talking out my ass here, but not just, but basically what I'm saying is I've heard more stories lately and even myself been involved in situations where it's like, oh, we never got paid for this show.
Yeah.
That fucking sucks.
Yeah.
So
Uh,
even, despite the fact that I think people have been so willingly open about, hey, just so you know, this venue or this promoter, like they're withholding money, this shit still happens.
Yeah, and the reason I didn't spread it exactly, you're totally right. But the reason I didn't spread it around this time with the Casbah was I was like it must not happen that often because people like the Casbah. People go to the Casbah. So I don't know. I told it privately to some people, but it wasn't like I put it out there to blast them because it was just like maybe it's a one-off. In fairness, nobody showed up. I don't know. It was just a shitty situation, I think, for everybody involved. Um, but my longer answer about worst shows was my answer would basically just be like, eventually, because of my anxiety and stuff that I talked about earlier, I mean, I like had to drink or smoke before performing. And for a very long time, that was fine. And then over time, it was just like, over time, I was doing slightly better locally. So I played later and I had more time to drink. And I just, by the time I was there, it would be like, I was so loose. It wasn't cool loose. It was like sloppy loose. That's how I felt. And so I guess my longer answer is there was just like whatever shows happened during that section of time was just like not my best, even if once in a while there was a fun peak thanks to the drunkenness that was propping me up.
Mhm. And I think that's so common too, like not only as musicians, but just in a lot of nightlife entertainment where you hear kind of the same stories about people saying, because it's all around you, you end up maybe getting a bit too drunk before your shows, but it happens multiple times and it becomes a whole
Yeah.
thing. So, and if you don't mind me bringing this up, I understand like you're also on a sober journey right now too.
Yep, sober journey. Well, California sober journey, as you'd say. Like, so I
Okay.
still have weed, and I haven't had it for I don't know, maybe, a year and a half now. But I'm open to mushrooms if it happens or whatever. But yeah, I'm away from alcohol just because I was like, the way I've been describing it is, it stopped giving me back something. Eventually, it was just like, why? I just felt myself being like, why? Uh, there was a period of time right before I moved back towards being with my parents where and I was unemployed and which I still am, but it was worse then for whatever reason. Uh where I made the decision where I was like, I'm gonna drink all the time. Fuck it. Like, who cares? I'm unemployed. Uh, there's no prospects coming, but I have severance. I'm just gonna like drink once 6 p.m. hits. And then I just walk around in the park in Dufferin Grove Park and I'll just walk around. Who cares that I'm publicly drinking or could be stopped and get a ticket? Who cares that eventually I start walking around more downtown parts, still just openly drinking or smoking weed? Eventually, it was just the point where it was just like, even though I knew I made the concerted point to start, uh, it was it was fun at the beginning because you're choosing to.
Hmm.
Uh, and it does feel loose and stuff like that. And then over time, you're just like, oh, now this is just bringing me up to normal. This is so normal now that it's not a joy. It's just shitty if I don't have it. Uh, and so there I was like, okay, probably time to stop. And
Yeah,
it
that's
and
fair.
it wasn't that hard for me to stop because it luckily I I liked binge drinking, but I wasn't the type who needed to drink every day. I was choosing to, but that I could stop anytime. The tough part was stopping once I started. Uh, and so I've stopped. Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, I appreciate you being so vulnerable and open about that. And, congratulations on, quitting and, just doing what you can to, keep yourself at a level that you want to be at. And I'm sure, would you say it's maybe kind of helped you with your, with your creative process or anything with music or?
Stopping drinking. Yeah, I would say so. I took a break from weed for like a month or a month and a bit. And all of that, you realize how much it puts a wall up, even in stuff you wouldn't realize. Like everybody understands maybe it would put a wall up interpersonally or something like that, but it even put a wall up like I smelled better. I don't mean my body smelled better. I mean I could smell things better. It was
Interesting.
bizarre.
Okay. Huh.
Uh like I'd go outside and go, "Oh, right." Like when you're walking past a tree, you're supposed to like the tree, you get the scent of the tree. Whereas I had been smoking enough, it just is sort of like a cloud over, it's like a blanket over you. Everything is just through the prism of the weed smoke. And so anyway, it was just a nice, so yes, and therefore being open to those experiences again impacted my writing and etc. But it's a bit of a weird thing because this whole album I wrote and recorded during that time I was purposefully drunk and high. Uh, Not to feed the writing. It just that's when it happened.
Right. I mean,
Um,
you say this album, do you mean the upcoming one or the
Sorry,
one?
yes, yes, the upcoming one that'll be probably in April now or something. Yeah, that one. Um, and Yeah, so it's just a weird experience going back to it now, so sort of sober from that. But I mean, as cliche as it is for a straight guy to reference Ernest Hemingway, he did have a funny quote about it, which is write drunk, edit sober. And I think there's like kind of I see what he's going for, which is be loose when you're creating and then rein it in and trim it when you're editing. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
anyway.
I think so much of that can be said for just anything, like if you write a song when you're feeling a type of way and then, you come back to it when you've calmed down and then,
Yeah,
okay,
you're
this
like,
is
"Oh
this is all great raw
Jesus."
material. Let's turn it
Yeah.
into something a bit more focused. So,
So
yeah.
right, exactly.
Yeah. So with all that in mind, talk about creations and songs. I think it's time to get down to the questions about songs. What
Yeah.
would you say is your best song?
Yeah. Well, I've realized over time I have a really bad barometer for what I think is going to be a song everybody likes versus what they actually do like. But with that said, I think personally, I was thinking about it today. This is the one question I did prepare for fuck's sake. And
Amazing.
uh, yeah, and there are sort of two answers because you can answer it two ways. I think the one that people like the most is on the dance floor because it's like poppy and preppy and whatever. People could dance with their partners or something. Um, and it's simple. Um, but I think my favorite is down to two, and they're fairly different. One is Rosie, which is from the same album as On the Dance Floor, but it's a lot more moody, and there's like a string section, and I'm just proud of that songwriting in a chord progression. I'm proud of it in every way you might think someone could be. I'm proud of the chord progression. I'm proud of the melody. I'm proud of the lyrics. I'm proud how it all hangs together and creates an overarching a- aesthetic or atmosphere or whatever you want to say. I just think it was my most successful attempt at writing a song like that. And
Okay.
it's a folky song with um it's a folky song with like fiddle and stuff kind of as the atmosphere. Um
And is that a song you'd say maybe like came quite easily to you to fall into place, or did it take some
no,
time?
it was a fucking nightmare Frankenstein awful project. Yeah, it was the sort of thing where it's like, okay, the bridge is at one point, the verse, the chorus is at one point, the intro, all that
I
kind of
know
thing.
exactly what you're talking
And you
about.
get so lost in it and you're like, what? I have no idea what's a hook anymore or whatever, right? Um, but eventually I settled it down and I sort of was able to tape over the parts, metaphorically tape over the parts I knew weren't totally fitting with like fiddle and stuff like that. And only you know the way you've put makeup on your face specifically. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I think that's probably I was most successful at that. But then I had another one in mind, and that one is called As Close as You'll Ever Be. And getting back to my complaining about all that, God knows everything. Uh, that one's more about that wasn't like my best attempt at skewering what we do,
Okay.
skewering the importance of being a musician and the relationship between us and the audience and the industry at large. It's mostly a takedown of the industry at large, I suppose. Um, and I think frankly, I just think the lyrics are the most successful there. So that's why. And I still play it sometimes.
When you say you think the lyrics are the most successful, do you mean like you just like them the best, or they're maybe like quote unquote the best you've written, or people like them, or what do you mean by
True,
that?
true. Yeah, I guess it's vague. I guess, yeah, thank you. I guess what I mean is some mix of the first two, which is I think that literally what I've written is good and I like the way the words sit. Um, but also I guess the way they fit in with whatever melody I gave them is satisfying to me as well. A successful equals musically satisfying or some satisfying to your mind is what I mean.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Those two are I think my best. They were yeah. Yeah. That's funny thinking back on Rosie and remembering how much of a process that was. That was a real process, but it's fun to play. It's easy to get lost in because I remember all of the different versions. So if I'm
Mhm.
playing live, I'm like, oh Lord. But yeah. Yeah.
I'm laughing too because like just to quickly, self-insert here,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
one
yeah.
of my probably my favorite song of mine is a song called Amateur, and it was the exact same thing where that song started as something completely different and so fucking overcomplicated
Mm-hmm.
until it finally got down to where it is now. And even if it's not necessarily what maybe the audience would consider my best, it's my favorite for a lot of reasons. So anyway, I really liked hearing you having a very, very similar story just there.
Yes, yeah. I maybe that uh it could have gone either way, you know what I mean? If it had never worked out as a song or it had been a real botched attempt, maybe it would have been my choice for the next question, right? It's
Hmm.
those songs can go either way, and so when they work out, you're like, "Oh, it's so much more satisfying in a way than sometimes when it just comes out in 15 minutes, although that's really nice."
Yeah, completely.
Yeah.
So, with that in mind, now the big question.
Yes.
Alex Southey, what is your worst song?
Yeah. Okay, okay. So I have thought about this, but the first answer is sort of a what other people have done on this podcast, which is it's a little bit of a cop out. So I'll give a answer after. But not to say other people have copped out. What I mean is they've copped out and then given another answer.
Right.
Uh, my cop out is there's a song on my second album, and the song is called Angel at the Bed. And I like the song, whatever. But it fails, I think, like I'm speaking in terms of success before. This one fails for me because it was an idea. I killed the song at the expense of making a point. And my point was I want people sometimes just like get lost when they're listening to an album and almost fall asleep and don't pay attention when a new song starts and whatever. And that's fine. That's how people are. But I wanted to sort of wake people up occasionally throughout the album. And so what I did was I stopped the song right at its right when you as the listener think it's probably going to hit its chorus, so like right at the crest, and it never comes back and it just cuts to me sleeping. And uh I think the point is made, but I don't think it was made successfully because everybody who listens to it goes, "Oh, I think something's wrong with my file." Uh
Oh
it
man.
just stops, and I was really liking that song. So it's a failure because I chose the wrong song to make that point out of, and people didn't get the point.
Okay, that's really interesting. Would you so to make that point, is
Hmm.
that something you try to do again, but do in a way that could be done more successfully? Or you're like, no, I'm never friggin' doing that again.
No, I think that that point can be made, and I'm going to make it again, but it has to be made the opposite way. It won't be made with silence. It'll be made with like a cacophony of sound. It has to be the opposite. It has to be like an audio slap in the face as opposed to an absence of something.
Right.
I
Okay, I see
think
what you're
that's
saying.
my idea. Yeah, that's what I'll try and do eventually. I had that idea to do it on this album that I'm going to be putting out, but I don't think I will. But I had written a song where it all is flowing quite, you know, GDC, like everybody's gonna kind of be used to it. Um, and then just out of nowhere, almost like vines or plants, the notes start wandering off from what they used to be until everything is sort of totally unorthodox and odd and misshapen. And it would just shock the listener. I think if it's successful, that's what it would do. And so that's my idea for it. It's not coming out yet, but I did do like a demo of it.
Yeah, no, that
Uh
sounds really cool. Like it's a unique thing too, and obviously it's doing something more than silence. So,
yes. And probably more fun to create than silence. You know, silence is just like erasing, at least this I get to create little things. And then I guess that's my cop out answer, right? Because it's not a full song. If people go listen to it, they might like it, but it's only like 45 seconds of a song.
okay.
So I think that my worst song, honestly, I don't know. There's a bunch of contenders. Uh,
Is there a
sometimes
song where you're like, you know what, I never want to like fucking play this one again or hear this one again? Is there anything like that or?
certainly I just I gotta go back and look at my I mean, I think that that's the one that I've really thought about a lot. Angel at the Bed, the one that I just described. That's one I always think about as kind of my worst for all the reasons that I got into. But I am just briefly combing through what I've written. I guess actually on my second album, which again, my second album where I referenced what the hell was that song that I talked about? Um, Angel at the Bed. So clearly I fucked up during this album. Uh Angel at the Bed is one, and I have this other song called The Fall Positive. It's the last song in the album. I was going for a like big grand, not like Hey Jude, but that kind of refrain where it's a big ending and everything has come together and tied with a bow. And I think it's pretty, but it was just it sounds so small when I listen to it. And
Mm.
therefore it did not achieve what I wanted it to, and it makes me kind of cringe listening to it. It's pretty, but yeah, it makes me cringe.
And would that be like a production problem or performance problem, or what would you say? Just like a culmination?
A combination performance and yeah, yeah, my voice and the lyrics and the chord progression. It's all just a little too corny sweet to me now, I think.
Okay.
It's well
And
well
that's
intentioned.
right. And so that's, yeah, that outro that was supposed to be a big outro, but wasn't. What about the rest of the song? Like, do you like the rest of the song, or you just like put the whole thing in the trash?
Part of the part of the problem is the whole song sounds like a refrain. It doesn't
Okay.
sound like a song. So I don't know. The way I would describe it is it's like if you were trying to make a great cupcake with icing and then you just stripped everything away other than the icing. It's like where is the thing meant to hold this up? All of this is you can't just have accoutrement. You need the thing in the middle, right? And it's like I got rid of everything and just kept. It's like taking a movie out and just keeping the Easter eggs in the movie. It's bizarre. It's
Mm.
yeah, it was just a failed experiment.
And is it one that you've done live ever, or even think, the question that you ask people a lot of times, would you
Hmm.
ever try to rework it into something live, or is it just kind of a lost cause?
It's funny the way I'm answering some of these questions. I didn't think I would when I've I always thought I would be the type to say, yeah, yeah, of course I'd rework it, but hell no, I don't think I could. I don't know how I'd have to change the song to the point that it would not resemble the song that it is for me to be okay with it. Uh, so no, I guess. Um,
Okay. Just brackets Alex's version and call
yeah,
it
yeah,
a
exactly, exactly.
day.
Who knows how often more of those crazy lawsuit stuff will happen in music, you know? Maybe we all will eventually need our Jess's version and Alex's version and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah. All right. Yeah, did you have anything else to add about any of those songs
I
or?
don't think so. I just want to say thank you so much for pulling hosting duties. You did a great job. I loved it. You took it very seriously.
Oh, no, I had the most fun, honestly. Like, thank you so much. And like again, like I've told you before, like I honestly God, I listen to the show every single week, so I'm just truly, truly honored to
Oh,
be here. All right, so in that case, you want to reintroduce yourself and say the name of your worst song.
sure. It's fun to see this said back to me. Yeah, I'm Alex Southey, and my worst song is well, what am I going with? I guess I'm going with Angel. I will go with Angel at the Bed, I guess. I don't know, it was a real failure. Just listen to that album and it's just failure after failure. All right, Angel at the Bed.
All right, and there you have it. Congratulations on 50 episodes, Alex.
Thank you very much.
Give me your hand and give me your body. I'll keep both of these. I know you're right about being a body.